BetMGM is the king of online casinos. Enjoy Las Vegas excitement at your fingertips. Play popular live games like blackjack, baccarat, and roulette. Leap into a world filled with slots, live dealers, popular table games, and much more. Download the app today and see for yourself why BetMGM is the king of casinos. Ontario residents only, must be 19 plus. Play responsibly.
Hi, Maria. Can you?
Canadian show, North American radio show, and now worldwide show, the LizyT Blog Talk Radio Show. She wants to know who you are, what you do, your contact info, anything new. And now welcome the amazing LizyT.
Hello, hello, and welcome, everyone. I am your host and one of the producers of the LizyT Show. How are you doing this afternoon? It is Friday. My goodness, I am so excited to be here today and very excited to have another author and another international author here to the show, the way from beautiful states. And my goodness, I'm very excited to be here today, broadcasting live. As you know, we do that. And so I'm very honored to be here broadcasting live. So by the way, if there is questions, comments, or even just to say hello, I'd love for you to have interact with to be able to interact with us. So please do make sure that if you would like to interact with us, you can always call us at 516-418-4749. Again, the number is 516-418-4749. And we love to have you interact with us, interact with our guests, and definitely, ask questions. So it's all about interaction. It's all about making sure that our guest feels welcome here at our studio and to make sure that we are talking about what people love the most, especially nowadays: new books, new inspiration, new things, and things that can uh, elevate you, especially at this time of year when things are just crazy. I'm hoping that you are safe and healthy anywhere that you are in the world. By the way, we have 49 countries listening to us. If not now, they will be listening to later on. And because our guest is originally, I see from the bio, which I will read it in a couple of minutes, from Romania, I think we can add another country to our list, which is going to 49, 50, no, sorry, it was 59, so 60 countries, including Romania right now. Beautiful. I would like to stress too that after our interview, we have our musical section. So if you are a singer songwriter and you would like to have a little bit of extra exposure to your song, to your music, to your craft, you can always send us your MP3 at show at LizyT.com, show at LizyT.com. We will love to support you with your craft and we love to support you with your music. We know that it's challenging to have your music played out there. Here at the LizyT Show, we are 150% supportive. Okay. Also, I would like to thank our sponsor. Thank you so much, Dr. George Grant, for sponsoring the show. If you are interested in being part of the show and in sponsoring us, you can always do so by contacting us again at show@LizyT.com, and we would love to send you a package. How you can sponsor the show. We will be playing the words of a sponsor throughout the show for you to be able to see how it works, and also if you are interested in consulting with Dr. George Grant, please mention you heard it on the Lizzie T Show. And that's pretty much my housekeeping. Let us get going.
Canadian show, North American radio show, and now worldwide show. The LizyT Blog Talk Radio Show. She wants to know who you are, what you do, your
Yes, I do like to know who you are, what you do, contact info, anything new. Today, everyone, we have international author Maria Cristina Nicola, and I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing her name correctly, properly. Maria was born in Bucharest in Romania, and she immigrated to New York at the age of 12. Since the publication of her anthology, Life in Opera, and a partial of her latest book, The Don Carlos Enigma, she was lured by uh, the operating universe from written perspective, drawing in her background as a classic trained singer who had performed at such a venue as Will Recital at the Carnegie Hall. Wow, Merkin Hall, Florence Gold Hall, and the Westchester Broadway Theater, among many others. She told as a PhD. She holds, the PhD in comparative literature from Graduate Center and contributed to Classical Singer magazine and culture and society website Woman Around Town. Her website, everyone, I will let her to tell you where people can find her. That is the theme of the show. But without further ado, let's welcome Maria Cristina Nicola to the show with a wonderful round of applause. Hello, hello, Maria, and good afternoon, and welcome to the Lizzie T Show. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Lizzie, and good afternoon to our listeners. I'm well, and how are you up there in our neighboring country?
You are so cute. Yes, we are. We are doing well. Unfortunately, here in the province of Ontario, it looks like we're reverting back to phase two, which means some of our restaurants and some of our gyms have closed as of today or as of yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So it is what it is. We're all coping, the whole world is coping with this horrible disease, virus, and pandemic. And I'm wondering for you that are is a musician, a writer, how are you coping with this situation in New York?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like it has definitely split me in two. I cannot sing, of course. I cannot do any public appearances as a singer, but at the same time, the writer is flourishing because I'm in isolation. So, what better use of my time than to write and think of next projects and read and try to keep the hope and the faith up that we will emerge from this. And I just wanted to say I have listened to your show, and I think what you're doing is so important because you're bringing people together and offering them information and offering us a chance to share our lives and our background with them. And I think that's such a special mission that you are on, and all of the radio broadcasts are on. So congrats on your show, Lizzie.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. And you know what? I figured if I am able to contribute and have this tiny little platform in the world for musicians, for artists, for authors to be able to share. And I believe that the reason I'm doing this is that if I'm able to reach, or my guess in your case, if your book is able to move one person or inspired one person, or help to see the light or take them out of that frustration time that all of us are going through. That's my job. I'm fulfilled. That's the reason I do this. And as an author yourself, because you're that's just your other part of your life. You're first of all a musician, an incredible voice, an incredible musician. For people that don't know Maria Cristina, what started your career, your life as a musician? What number? That's part of one, number one, and then the writer came in, which is incredible. So, any musicians, any background, family members, what inspired, what gave you the desire to become this amazing singer?
I saw my first opera when I was 10 years old. This was in my native city in Bucharest, in Romania, at the Bucharest Opera House. And I felt like I was struck by lightning. I was so fascinated by those people on stage and those incredible voices coming out of characters that to me seemed real. In fact, that I couldn't even leave the hall, the auditorium during intermission because I was afraid I would miss a second of them coming back on stage, and I was only 10. And that instilled in me the desire to be one of those amazing singers, to be able to do that with my life. I didn't have a voice at the time. That was the funny part, the ironic part, because every time I had to sing, people would run away. It was kind of a very off-tune-ish voice.
Oh
But
God.
then when I know it was like a combination between a combination between a heavy chain smoker and somebody who I don't know, who just was completely had no musical ear. But then at 16, I was lucky. This was after we had come to the United States to meet a voice teacher who saw the way to open up my voice and just told me, hey, by the way, you have 3.5 octaves in your range octaves, and we can work on that. So the singing began with that performance at the Bucharest Opera House, and to my surprise, I actually did end up realizing that I do have a voice. But the writer, interestingly enough, had come in earlier because I was writing verses and making up word games since I was very, very young. And according to my parents, I would come up with these unusual metaphors of light flowing on windows, and that was very strange for such a small kid. I was also encouraged. My dad and I used to play a lot of word games, and I think language just flourished in my mind since those very, very early years, and it was unnatural. So while writing was something that came as like breathing to me, singing was something that I wanted to do, but I had to work a lot at it. It was less, I would say, less second nature than writing.
That is incredible, Maria Cristina. I am so at awe that although you were able to see yourself in an audience, you didn't have the voice. To me, this is, I have to completely be honest with you, Maria, that this is the first time I've heard a musician said I did not have the voice. I've been doing this for 4 years, and every single musician I've been singing since I was 5, my voice was always the greatest. People would say you should become a singer, and I was like, no, no, no. All of a sudden, I was pushed, and then when I opened my mouth, it was just ta-da. But in your case, you had to work really hard for your voice to come out. You had to be discovered and work towards an octave, which is I have a cousin who is a musician, jazz musician, and I used to train my voice because being here every day, not only radio but also TV, obviously you need to warm up a voice so you don't get tired. So she did tell me that I could work towards an octave, but didn't know that until, I was getting voice trained. But in your case, you finally, they discover that you had what it took to become this amazing singer. And I remember watching an opera a long time ago, and TV is doesn't make it just. And when you're watching something, you have to be there. And I know when you were describing your very first experience watching it, I felt because it being in the time, being at the moment, watching those performers, it is breathtaking. It is out of this world. It is completely different than watching something on TV. So good for you that your family supported you and you were able to work towards having this incredible, incredible voice. And look at you now, and the writing is incredible. So let's talk about this book that you have just finished, that you're promoting now. Um, what gave you the inspiration to write this book? And one of the things that I love about it is, that is it's about your background. So let's talk about this book. So what gave you the inspiration to write this latest book?
I was in the doctoral program at the Graduate Center here in Manhattan, and the time had come for me to write my dissertation. So, looking for a topic, I knew it definitely had to be something connected to opera. So, opera is based on literature, but in the case of Don Carlos, there is such an abundance of literary associations associated with this subject that it was ideal. And not to mention that Verdi's opera Don Carlos is one of my favorite, all-time favorite operas among the entire repertoire. So I chose Don Carlos because it took me through a huge span of centuries, languages, and genres. If you think about it, this book goes from 16th century Spanish history to 17th century French literature, century German theater, and 19th century Italian opera, Italian and French, because Giuseppe Verdi's Don Carlos was first sung in French. On top of that, I felt like it was the perfect marriage between my operatic background and my literary studies in the comparative literature program at the Graduate Center. And as an homage to that, in the last chapter, I interviewed two tenors, two famous singers, Ramon Vargas and Jose Cura, about what is it like to sing this role and how do you bring a historical character to the stage and how do you make him live on and on through your voice, whether it's in Italian or French, and in whatever staging stage director envisions it. So in a way, this book was the culmination of my travels through both writing, literature, and music and singing. That's how I came up with the idea, and it just came out in September. So now I'm very excited about it, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it.
That is incredible. That is incredible. So for listeners that are listening to us right now or will be listening to us later on, what can they get out of this book? What would they learn? What would they And obviously I assume that most people that will be interested in this book are people that are appreciated. They're very appreciative of opera, appreciative of background of history, people that are informed about Don Carlos. um, I've heard the amount of history that Spain and Italy has, and French, obviously, with opera, which is incredible. There is so much history. You can dig yourself on a hole and never come back. So much information, so much history, and I can see why you chose this as a dissertation, because it's part of you, part of your background and your history. But for listeners, what can they learn from your book?
The aim was actually for me when I turned the dissertation into the book, my aim was to make it accessible to a general readership. So even if somebody knows nothing about Don Carlos, I would say they could read this if they were interested in seeing how fiction is born within history. And we actually see that all the time, in all kinds of, let's say, in the case of Philip II, the Spanish king's court, there were so many different reports about the mystery of Don Carlos's, who is his son, the mystery of Don Carlos's death, that you could say they invented the first literary text about Don Carlos right there at the source. So seeing this journey of how fiction was born within history and how these three amazing genius creators of the 17th century, César Richard de Saint-Réal, and 18th century Friedrich Schiller, 19th century Giuseppe Verdi, how they took this mystery and the potential for fiction and creativity, and they innovated. They innovated in each in their specific genres. This book, my hope it is that it would interest anybody, of course, anybody who's a history buff, literature buff, opera,
Yeah.
theater buff, as well as anybody who is curious to see how does history become fiction. And as
Hmm.
we know, that happens all the time.
On that note, yeah. So what do you think that this book has in parallel with the events that are happening in today's society, in our society?
Well, just look at the news, look around, without getting too specific or into specifics. I mean, one strong aspect is definitely the idea of fake news that is so pervasive. It's not something new, but doing this research and looking back at Philip's court in the 16th century and also the entire propaganda and denigration campaigns against Philip that occurred based on the speculation around Don Carlos's death. Looking back at that, there's nothing new under the sun. Those were examples of fake news, and not in entirety, but there were so many variations on the reasons or on the reasons why Don Carlos was incarcerated and on how he died. And some of those variations were not even political, some were very personal. For instance, just to give you a brief example, the English ambassador to the Spanish court changed his story. So at first, he reported that Philip II locked up his own son, Don Carlos, because Don Carlos was mentally unstable and a threat to the Spanish realm. But because this English ambassador was dismissed abruptly from the Spanish court, he changed his story and he said he started spreading the rumor that Don Carlos was actually poisoned by his own father, by orders of his father in prison. So there's a mix of personal and political motivations in this symphony that is history, and all of these themes come back over and over again, just in very various motifs. And that is happening, of course, that is happening today as well as it has happened throughout time.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I think more now because of all the issues with social media and having media in the palm of your hands and getting bombarded. I think more now just because of that extra added uh, apparatus that we call cell, which is practically a walking advertisement throughout 24/7 if you don't and not strong enough to turn that cell phone off, which at nighttime, which I do. It's more overwhelming now. Back on those days, obviously, it was word of mouth and newspapers and things like that. But now I think it's a lot stronger. Guys, we are live today and we are speaking with an incredible person. My goodness, I am so honored to have somebody of her caliber here on our little platform, the LizyT Show, all the way from New York to Toronto, Canada. If you would like to interact with us, please do so. We still have some time. The number is 516 418 5749. She is an opera singer, but not only that, she is a amazing writer, which has done an incredible research. And this book right now, which we are discussing, it is the book is called Don Carlos Enigma: Variations of Historical Fiction, and we'll find out where we can get that book for you that are interested in this genre. And obviously, to get in touch with her, we will share all this information right after the words of my sponsor. Don't go anywhere.
Meet Professor George Grant, PhD, Canada's wellness expert ambassador, scientist professor, former quarantine officer with Health Canada, FDA and CDCA, international best-selling celebrity author of 13 books, including the Guinness World Records holder of 126 best-selling authors signing simultaneously. Would you like to improve your sleep, reduce your pain, manage your stress anxiety, reduce the dependency on prescription and over-counter medications, and reverse any challenge naturally? Among 7+ billion people on Earth, we have our unique fingerprints. It is time to leave our unique imprint on everyone we touch to enchant more lives. academyofwellness.com.
Canadian show, North American radio show, and now worldwide show. The LizyT.
Thank you so much, Dr. George Grant, academyofwellness.com. Please, if you are suffering from migraines, doctor don't know what you're having, MRIs have been done and no solution, please give it a shout, give it a call, or you can connect him via his website, academyofwellness.com. And if you mention you heard it via the LizyT Show, hey, my job is complete. That's what I'm here for. We're speaking live today with author and singer Maria Cristina Nicola. She is with us all the way from New York, which was just there before COVID, interviewing singers. And I so miss the traveling, but we will be going back there again soon. We got to be optimistic. If you would like to interact with us and with our guests, comment, questions, or you can use our social, Facebook, The LizyT Show, Instagram, The LizyT Show, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And yes, we're doing TikTok. We're everywhere. Our website is LizyT.com, and there will be a link here for you to be able to leave your comments. Or you can call us today or right now. We still have some time to say hello, to ask questions, or perhaps just curious about whatever is it that we're talking about today. The topic is the amazing book that she has written, which is called The Don Carlos Enigma: Variation of Historical Fiction by Maria Cristina Nicola. The number is 516-418-4749. So, Maria, I just don't want to forget for people to find out where can they get this book and how can people reach out to you or how can people connect to you. I assume you have a website, you're on social media. Can you share with the audience, with my audience, please?
Yes, sure. So the book is available on Amazon, and my website is really long. It's my entire name, so it's mariacristinanicola.com. I'm also people can write me there. I have a contact form and welcome messages. I'd be glad to hear from you there. And I also have Facebook, of course, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you they're accessible from my website, or if you look for me on Google, they pop up. So please, yes, I welcome messages, and I would love to hear from you.
Beautiful. And by the way, everyone, if you just missed it, you were just tuned in, don't know, we'll have the links on our social media, and obviously it will have the link on my website and even on my social media, Facebook /LizyT Radio, and you will be able to just click the link and go straight to Amazon, go straight to her website and follow her and ask questions, or even just, you are in the industry, you're an opera singer, you want to know, you want to share some uh, if similar situations and information that are going through right now, you can always do that as well. So the question of the day, well, one of the last questions, the theme of the show is tell us who you are and what you do, which you're doing an amazing job, Maria Christina. I appreciate it. Anything new? Is it going to be a sequel? Are you thinking about another book? Are you thinking about something completely different? And this is not the first book that you've written, right? This is number four, or I'm pretty sure I saw some other titles out there.
Yes, I this is in terms of nonfiction, this is the second one. My first one is called Life in Opera, and that began as a personal journey of me as going and interviewing many of the opera stars, administrators, conductors, directors, because I wanted to get a glimpse into what it's like to live a life devoted to opera and work at that level. This turned into this anthology, Life in Opera, that was several years ago. So the Don Carlos Enigma is my second nonfiction book. Mm, But in terms of nonfiction, I actually touch on this in Don Carlos. I touched on the element of conspiracy, and that's always such a relevant theme. We have famous conspiracies, we have conspiracy theories, and the writer, especially the 17th century French writer who wrote about Don Carlos, brought that as an element into his novel and anchored it in history, the element of conspiracy. So my thought was perhaps as a follow up to look at some of these famous conspiracies throughout history and write something about that, uh, following up from the Don Carlos Enigma. That's one idea. My other writing has been poetry, so I have three actually, three collections, short collections of poems out, and also a translation of a very funny, sweet play by the 17th century playwright Molière. It's called The School for Wives, and the challenge for that was for me to try to keep the rhyme and the rhythm in English. It's sort of like songwriting, to take the French of the 17th century and try to bring that to a contemporary English by also making it rhyme in Alexandrine verse. So the follow up to some of this will probably, yes, to continue to write more poetry and
Mhm.
follow up on this interesting, mysterious conspiracy theme.
And I think that's going to be very popular nowadays, especially for people that just of things that are going on, in this century, in this year, in this time, and I don't want to get into it because it's very political. And but my view, some of you have known that what I've expressed. I have a very very suspicious view of what's going on, and I think a lot of people agree with me, and some people don't, and that's okay. Thanks to Canada and thanks to U.S., we have freedom of speech so far. But I can see that happening, especially the way you write, the way you express yourself, and the way that you see things. And obviously, you've studied history, so what's been going on in the past, and the theme kind of follows now in the 21st century. So, it is what it is, and people take it with a grain of salt, and they realize where they fit. And the more research you do, the more things you find. And I know you are that kind of person that loves to do a lot of research and find out things for yourself, which is amazing, which is amazing. Love it, love it. I love our conversation, Maria Christina. I think you're doing so well. And for people that are expecting you to perform in the near future, and unfortunately, I understand. I interview tons of musicians, and this has been such a horrible time for them. But I've seen a lot of people performing on their living rooms, on a home studio, and kind of creating, the opera with at home. Is that something that you are considering with perhaps a group of yours that you have established already, or you doing things on your own to keep the momentum and not lose, the lack of not being able to perform?
That's really a great question. I feel like the singer in me has been on pause throughout all these months. I think also because the writer kind of took over and said, "Okay, it's my turn now, so you be quiet." But I feel like the way the way for me to get back to that is I have also been writing songs, and one of my greatest dreams is to be able to take these songs that I have recorded, but in a very, I would say, in a very basic fashion, where it's all about the words and less about the composition itself, but more about the words and the melody that follows those
Mm-hmm.
words. My dream would be to be able to take these songs and perform them with instrumentalists, and they don't even have to be that many. I experimented in different genres, from Latin American music to
Mm-hmm.
ballads to folk to
Wow.
the driving force behind these albums has always been the lyrics. The lyrics for me are number one, or have been here. So I think as a singing project, getting back into it and reacquainting myself with my voice all this time, it would be a dream come true to find a couple of people to work with and just get these songs, perform them live somewhere, even
Absolutely.
if it's in an apartment or in a studio, and we get to broadcast
To
them somewhere, share them
I
with the world.
I think it's a great idea, a lot of musicians are resorting to that, unfortunately, because you need to keep that momentum, and you need to keep the. You're a performer, period, and without performer, you can't live. It's like that healthy drug that the phenomenon that keeps you going, and I completely understand. We have a comment or a question from a caller, Stacy. Please go ahead. What's your comment or question to your guest?
Hi. I'd like to congratulate Maria on her book. It sounds fascinating. And my question is, there have been so many dark stories about Don Carlos. I've heard things like he tortured animals, for example. And there's even been some speculation that inbreeding within the family led him to mental instability. I'm just wondering, were there any other relatives who suffered a similar fate? Um, you know, what more can you tell us about his mental instability? How does your book get into that?
Thank you so much,
Yes,
Stacy.
thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this great question. Yes, that is historically documented. Don Carlos was mentally unstable and had birth defects as well, and that is attributed to inbreeding. And he had a distant relative named Juana La Loca. She was actually she would be his great grandmother, because she was Philip's grandmother. Juana La Loca, Juana the crazy one, was apparently very, very brilliant, but she suffered from what would now be called, I guess, what would now be labeled schizophrenia, and she had to be locked up. I think it was she was still very young when that happened, and Don Carlos's defects stem from this tradition of inbreeding. Don Carlos's father, Philip, and his mother were actually first cousins, and it wasn't just this one occurrence. This came down from generations. The inbreeding, the fact that he had sadistic inclinations, that is true. He did have some. There were some horrible reports about him torturing animals and just being very violent. The speculation was also that that happened whenever he wasn't getting attention, that he was a very emotionally starved child in the way he grew up and the way he lost he lost his mother. Actually, his mother died when he was only 4 days old, and then everybody that took care of him was kind of taken away from him gradually. So there's a combination of factors that made him become who he turned out to be.
Thank you so much, and I hope that answered your questions. I appreciate it. And it looks like, Maria Cristina, we are unfortunately just started to come to the end of the show. I wish I could have an MP3 with your music so I can finish off, because we're moving on to our musical section, which unfortunately we don't have a lot of time to play a lot of music, but it is what it is. This conversation, it is so incredible, and it's so involved that I just can't say, we gotta go. So it's going with, I'm going with the rhythm, and I appreciate you being here today, Christina Maria, and sharing with us all this amazing information, sharing your life, sharing your story, sharing this amazing book that you have written. And I'm hoping that all of you guys are able to go to Amazon, click on my link, or click on Maria Christina's link and get this book. I want to thank you so much for being here today. It is a beautiful fall day here in Toronto, Canada. I hope you're enjoying the weather, and hope you are enjoying your weekend. Thank you so much. Any last word, my friend?
Well, I wanted to thank you. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I admire your spirit and just in your voice, and you're so positive and amazing to talk to. And I also want to thank all the listeners who listened today and who will be listening in the future. It's just been a pleasure to be able to share everything with you. And I wish you all the best. I'm sure this show is going to keep going and gain more and more audiences because you're amazing.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. That deserves a round of applause. Thank you. And keep up the awesome work. You're amazing. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. And that was author and opera singer Maria Cristina Nicola. Incredible background, history knowledge like you wouldn't believe it. I was a little bit receptive, thinking I might be able to keep up, but I am proud of myself. I was able to keep up there, and she is such a great storyteller, and she is such an amazing artist, which made it a lot easier for both of us. And I'm hoping that if you are interested in this book, please check it out. The links will be all over my social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, for you to be able to get this book, get this recording, listen if you just tune in. And we are moving to our musical section, and which won't have a lot of time, but better than nothing. We are playing right now Mandy. She is from France. We had her on the show about a month ago.